Right, now it's time to discuss the biggest stories that are doing the rounds this morning in the papers, and there are plenty of them developing overnight.
Yeah, to chat with us about all of these stories, to discuss them all, we've got broadcaster Lee Davey. Lee, great to see you. Let's start with a huge story with The Telegraph. They've run with it involves, of course, Cristiano Ronaldo, as all papers do, Pete.
Yeah, they often do. Morning, Lee. Look, Manchester United manager Erik has left the door open, it says, for him to leave in January if a decent offer comes in. Come on then, Lee. How do you solve a problem like Ronaldo?
Morning, gents. Nice to see you again. Yeah, it looks as though this long-running saga could be coming to an end. The Telegraph reported this morning that Ten Hag could be open to Ronaldo leaving. It's a far cry from where he was in the summer. You know, he vehemently came out and said, Ronaldo's not going anywhere. I'm counting on him this season. And as we know, Ronaldo has started just one game this season, which was the 4-0 defeat to, the 4-0 defeat to Brentford. It's just been a really difficult time for everyone at Manchester United, and specifically Ronaldo. I certainly didn't see this playing out this way. But the difficulty is where he goes. There's been one concrete offer, and that's come from Saudi Arabia. And we know that Ronaldo wanted the Champions League team. That's not materialised. So it can't continue. It has to change. He's not match fit ahead of the World Cup, and you could just see his mannerisms on the bench at the Etihad on Sunday. And this is a player who's incredibly frustrated. Didn't see the latter stage of his career panning out the way it has.
You did mention there Cristiano Ronaldo being on the bench. Some interesting words from Ten Hag after that defeat to Manchester City, saying that he didn't bring him on out of respect for his career. Everyone's given their opinion on it, but Lee, what do you make of that statement?
I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that at all. I think that anybody who watched that game could see that there were some frailties in the Manchester City defence, certainly towards the end of the game. I mean, United scored 3 times. And you know, even through the likes of Anthony Martial. Now, you know, Ronaldo in those situations, there was a goal in that for him, 1 or 2 goals. And even if United still probably wouldn't have gone on to claimed anything from the game, that would have done, you know, wonders for Ronaldo's confidence. Because Manchester United may need to call on Ronaldo at some point before the January window comes knocking. You know, Martial's fitness levels are not great. We know he's picked up a lot of injuries, and we've got Marcus Rashford as well. So we also struggle with injuries. So Manchester United may need to count on Ronaldo.
Fascinating to see, won't it, what happens with Ronaldo at Manchester United. You just feel that this one will run and run. And this is another one from the Telegraph overnight, Lee. Interestingly, we'll show you in a sec. But it involves Rafa Benitez and saying that he could be in at Nottingham Forest, Kyle.
Yeah, another defeat for Forest has left them at the bottom of the table. We saw they were beaten by Leicester last night, and Cooper seemingly on the brink. Lee, Forest's 4-0 defeat to Leicester was their 5th league loss in a row. What's gone wrong for them?
I think Steve Cooper, I think he alluded to it last night, and he looked at the types of the amount of players that have come in. I think it's 23 players that spent 150 million and almost kind of pulled away from that cohesive unit that got them promotion. He even admitted again in his post-match interview that, you know, that's a problem. To embed that amount of players into the team is a huge, huge problem. And they've not got time. He knows time's not on his side. But I also think the manner of some of the defeats, we look back at the 6-0 at Manchester City, you know, the 4-0 in an East Midlands derby, which is never going to look favourably upon him. But the results are just not happening for him. And you can also point to the defeats against Bournemouth, the defeat against Fulham, where Forest actually took the lead in those games and really squandered their opportunity to pick up points against teams that they will look at and earmark and say, yeah, we can look to pick up a point or 3 against those. So it's not looking good for Forest. They've got a massive game on Sky next Monday against Villa. Will he make it? Will he make it till then, Steve Cooper? I hope he does, but you know, Rafa Benitez reportedly waiting in the wings. We know he has connections with Lee Charney, who's a senior figure at Nottingham Forest. So I think it's a watch this space on that one, but there could be some movement in the coming days.
It'll be fascinating to see. I mean, yeah, I'd love to know, Lee, whether Steve Cooper was the man who wanted to sign all these players, or whether he would have liked to have had a go with the squad that did so well last season, whose shout it was to sign, 22 plus players. Because I think that's always going to be difficult, isn't it? And the Forest fans, to be fair to them, were singing Steve Cooper's name throughout the game last night in the away end, even though they were 4-0 down. Would it be harsh on Cooper, do you think, if he was to be sacked so early in the season?
I think so. Yeah, I really think so, Pete. I think that he deserves time to get Forest back up in the way he did. They played some fantastic football last season, and we're 7-8 games into the season. It'd be a real crying shame if they did let him go. I don't think it should be panic stations just yet. I think there's enough in that Forest side to push on, to grab 1 or 2 wins. Just look at Leicester. Leicester looked dead and buried themselves 2 weeks ago. 6 defeats on the trot, and they looked like a completely different team last night against Forest. So I'm hoping that Forest do give him time, but unfortunately, I think the writing's on the wall for him.
Often the case, isn't it?
Right, well, staying with managerial movements, and the search is on for a new manager for Middlesbrough after they sacked Chris Wilder.
Yeah, Gary O'Neill, Rob Edwards are the men being linked with the job at the minute. That's in The Guardian. Lee, Middlesbrough in the relegation zone. Big task for whoever comes in. Actually, former Borough midfielder Gary O'Neill, you have to say, done a brilliant job at Bournemouth so far at a caretaker role. I used to play for them, of course. Would he be a good fit for you?
I think he's shown that, he's got the capabilities to manage, obviously, in the Premier League. So, should he go to his former club, Middlesbrough, he might just be the manager that can come in and really lift that squad. 22nd in the Championship right now. Absolutely not where Steve Gibson wants to see that club. Look, at the end of the day, he's almost done an apprenticeship or a job interview for him for the last few weeks at Bournemouth. He's come in, he's steadied the ship. He's got 1 win. He's drew 3, so he's unbeaten so far down there. But Bournemouth haven't offered him a position yet. Whether they, look to keep him on for at least until the World Cup or at that point there, who knows? But Middlesbrough are not going to wait forever, and we know that Rob Edwards is someone that they're looking at as well, someone that they, see as a potential candidate for the job. He was, certainly some people believe, he was harshly sacked by Watford last week, so he's another name that's been thrown in there. But for me, O'Neill, would be a good fit. I think that, that having played for the club, he knows about the club. He spent 4 years there between 2007, 2011, so potentially a good fit for him there.
As always, this time of year, managers are departing with clubs. Wolves, no different. They're also in the search of a new manager, and they've been linked with another Portuguese man in Pedro Martins, who's been let go from Olympiacos. Were Wolves right to sack Bruno Lage?
The results would suggest yes. Wolves have got some really talented players, but they've just not been able to get the results this season. Lage will know that. It's a results-based business, and he will know that he will be judged on those results. Again, it's a little bit trigger-happy for me. I think that he deserved a little bit more time. There is a break coming up at the end of the start of November when we break for the World Cup. I do think there'll be some changes generally in management around that time, but I think he deserved a bit more time. He's brought some players in this season that would have been nice to see them bedded in and work under his system. But they're linked with Martins, who's a former Olympiacos manager. He's won 3 straight titles there in Greece, and again he's Portuguese, so makes sense for the club with such a huge Portuguese contingent to kind of follow in their footsteps of before and bring another Portuguese coach in. We'll see how that goes, but it looks as though with him currently being a free agent, that's a possibility for him to move to Molineux.
You're a nice man, Lee. You're offering all these managers more time. I like that. They could have had more time. He should have had more time. Quite right as well. The managers watching this morning are like, get in. Thank you very much, Lee. Moving away from footy, let's get to the boxing. Loads of talk about Fury Joshua, of course. This whole saga has been lingering on, but now reports everywhere that it now looks well and truly off.
The Sun and the Telegraph have gone with this one, and Eddie Hearn has all but confirmed that it is off. Lee, do you think there's any chance this fight could still happen? Who would you blame? Who's at fault for the breakdown in negotiations as well?
Oh, I feel wounded, lads. I'll be honest with you. This is it was on the tip of our tongue. This is something that was going to happen. It was, we were all kind of circling the 3rd of December. I think we looked at that day as a possible game for England at the World Cup in the round of 16, followed by the Boxing that night. And, that was going to be the big super Saturday. It's not going to happen as it looks right now. I think that I don't think it's going to go ahead. I think that it potentially could happen at a later date, but I don't think it will happen on the 3rd of December. I really don't. It looks as though Tyson Fury, obviously he's intervened quite a lot during these proceedings over the last couple of weeks with his social media posts. He's kind of been he's made it into a sprint, hasn't he, rather than, a sprint race to get proceedings over the line. And we've seen a lot of ex-boxers come out recently and say, look, these negotiations take time. They don't happen overnight. There's so much that needs to be checked over. There's, lawyers and, broadcasters. There's so much that goes into it. But ultimately, it's put pressure on this situation. And, I was hopeful that it would go ahead, but it looks as though it's not going to happen now. In the future, potentially, it will. Fury said he's fighting on the 3rd of December, no matter who. So whether that's going to be, an Andy Ruiz or whether that's going to be Mahmoud Shah. Let's be honest. Let's be frank about this, guys. Nobody wants to see those fights. We want to see Joshua and Fury. That's the fight we want to see. Eddie Hearn's come out and said, he's responded to claims that he's pulled Joshua out of the fight. He's come out and said, look, I don't pull Joshua out of the fight. Joshua makes his own decisions. But Joshua's coming off 2 defeats. I mean, it's a difficult time for him. It's a really pivotal fight, his next fight. He's 32 years old. If he loses a third on the trot, is that game over? Is that curtains for him? Maybe he needs 1 or 2 tune-up fights before going into a huge fight with Fury.
You're just gutted your house party's not going to happen now. The best weekend ever there with the football fight. It reminds me of, I remember England beat Argentina. I think it was the World Cup. And then later on that night, Lennox Lewis beat Mike Tyson. I was in my early 20s. What a weekend that was. That was incredible. We could have had this.
Oh, Pete, we're sports fans, we're fight fans, we're football fans. This is what we live for. Yeah. Huge moments like this. 3rd of December, miserable weather. That's what we want.
I couldn't agree more. Lee, brilliant to see you, as always, on Paper Talk. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Cheers. Thank you.